Welcome to episode one of the Diego Colley Football Show. Today we're going to be getting into a college football week one preview along with Washington Huskies expectations for the year. And towards the end of it, we're going to get into a national champion and a Heisman Trophy prediction. Hope you guys enjoy. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode one of the Diego Colley Football Show. Episode one, college football week one. We are here. Summer's over. It's finally football season, and we're all excited about that. So we had a good slate looking for this week. A lot of good games, a lot of interesting games. So I think we're just going to get right into it. I got some games I wrote down that really caught my eye looking down into it. And just looking at the slate, I just went and looked back at last year's week one slate. And this one feels like it has a lot more intrigue. I don't remember really how I felt going into last year, but I mean, and just last year's games, it seems like the product wasn't really as strong. We had Georgia blowing out Clemson in that neutral site game. We had that good USC LSU game that capped off the week on Sunday. And then we had Miami, Florida, but Florida was bad. Mertz to the quarterback, so that one wasn't too interesting. Notre Dame, Texas A&M was a good game in A&M, but besides that, there's not a lot that I'm like. There was only a few games that really headlined that slate, so I think we should be in for a good slate of games this weekend. So we're going to start with the best game of the week by far, Texas, Ohio State. Lee Corso's last game day. It's going to be a great thing to tune into that everyone should be tuning into on Saturday morning. He's probably going to pick Ohio State. I think that's kind of why they did it. In Ohio State, they didn't have game day last week for the week 0 games, but that'll be cool to watch. Probably a little emotional. But this game has a lot going on. I mean, you don't really get the number one team in the country going on the road to the reigning national champions in week one. And this could say a lot about both these teams. I think that Texas going in as the underdog is really interesting because they return more talent. It's going to be really interesting. I'm really excited to watch both these quarterbacks. Arch Manning in his first real start against this good Ohio State defense that I don't know if a lot of people are talking about that. I mean, it's Matt Patricia's first game as Ohio State defensive coordinator. Jim Knowles left to go to Penn State. So we might see it look a little different than it did last year. It's not going to be the same Ohio State defense that you saw last year. It was very good, obviously. I still expect it to be good, but I'm really excited to watch Julian Sand. Kind of a weird quarterback battle. Got announced as the starter last week. I heard some reports he was coming in a little shaky, that Kindholz looked a little better earlier in camp that I saw. But I mean, I think he just has to not make any mistakes. If he doesn't make any mistakes, then he's not going to lose any games for this team. But if you're an Ohio State fan, you don't want another Kyle McCord situation where you have all these stud receivers. They still have Carnell Tate. They still have Jeremiah Smith. Obviously, you don't want your quarterback to go out there and lose you the game. You want him just to be able to get the guys the ball. And I think Kyle McCord was overhated, but that might have been a little bit of a stray. But he just has to do his job. If he doesn't turn the ball over in this game and he gets Jeremiah Smith the ball, he's able to get him the ball in space, get Carnell Tate the ball in space, I think Ohio State should be fine. But I actually think Texas is going to win this game. I think that being underdogs is fueling them. Arch Manning had a cool quote earlier in the week when he said they're not being hunted. They have the red dot on everyone. I think that's interesting. It's a great quote. So yeah, I think that Texas going in there, I think Texas is going to win. My prediction is Texas is going to win that game at 9 a.m. Sucks that it's big noon kickoff. It really does suck. If it was a night game, just the aura in that stadium would be way higher, everything. But 9 a.m., great way to start the Saturday for everyone on the West Coast. And that's going to be a great one. I'm expecting Texas to pull it off, though. Really excited to see how Arch looks. I saw a tweet, actually, that the other day that's very true. It's like Arch Manning has all this hype to be a number one overall pick that if you just look at his play on the field, isn't nothing about what he's done on the field so far says like, oh, this guy should be the consensus number one overall pick. But like, if you just watch him on the field, you're like, this guy's going to be a very good Division I starter. So, like, how can he how like, which direction is he gonna sway in these first 2 weeks? And he's really getting thrown into the fire in this game. So, very excited to see that one. Alright, we're gonna touch on the next 2 big ranked matchups of the week. First, we're gonna go with LSU, Clemson, number 9 LSU going to Death Valley to face number 4 Clemson. And this is a big game for Brian Kelly, I think, because as we know, Brian Kelly, really bad opening week. I saw a stat, LSU hasn't won in week 1 since 2019 when Joe Burrow was the quarterback, and this is not gonna be a easy game for them. They're going in to face a team in Clemson who, as of recently, I haven't seen these guys, a lot of them posting their national championship prediction, their Heisman prediction, and I've been seeing Clemson coming out on top on a lot of those predictions. Cade Klubnik coming out top on a lot of those Heisman predictions, and they're a team that the national media is pretty high on. And this game is going to hinge a lot on LSU's offensive line and their run game. Obviously, we know Garrett Nussmeier is the quarterback. We know he can sling it, but that offensive line, I saw Brian Kelly said they're going to play 7, maybe 8 guys during the game. That's not usually a good sign, especially going into a game of this caliber that after all of spring, all of fall camp, they don't feel like they have 5 guys that they can rely on to put out there against Clemson this week against a really good Clemson D line. And this is also an LSU team that last year had the least rushing yards in the SEC. So, I mean, if they trot Nussmeier out there and drop him back every play, he's going to get killed out there. So they need to figure out that offensive line needs to prove themselves. They just need to be steady. They don't need to run the ball for 5 yards to carry. They just need to give Nussmeier some time. They need to be able to establish a little bit of a run game so they aren't so pass heavy against this very good Clemson defense. Very good Clemson defense. And on the Clemson side, I think Dabo's back, man. Clemson had a few not great years for Clemson standards after that great run in the mid 2010s, but I think this might be his team. And you'll see in my prediction later if I think I'm picking him all the way, but I think Klubnik's really good. He's got a quarterback he trusts. I think he's going to grow, and I think this one could get ugly. I could see Clemson running away with this game, 10, 15 points. Nussmeier keeping it close in the first half, but I think it's going to be another week 1 loss for Brian Kelly. All right, up next we got number 6 Notre Dame versus number 10 Miami. In Miami, Hard Rock Stadium, not the most hostile of environments, but is a home game for Miami. And, listen, about this game, I think that this is going to be the prettiest game, especially compared to the first 2 games I was just talking about. It's not going to have the firepower maybe that those 2 did, but it's going to be this is going to be a fun football game to watch. You got Carson Beck, obviously, CJ Carr, both 2 new quarterbacks for these 2 teams. Carson Beck came over from Georgia, bit of a shock, got a lot of money, wasn't able to practice in the spring. I think that's a big thing to note. Wasn't able to practice in the spring with that elbow injury he got in that Georgia playoff game. And then you got CJ Carr, who just won the job in Notre Dame. Marcus Freeman announced the freshman. He said he trusted him, said he went with his gut. Both these guys are going to, I think these teams are going to rely on their offensive line, their run game. Obviously, Jeremiah Love, potential Heisman dark horse for Notre Dame. And then you got Miami, who has a very, very good offensive line. And I think the story of this game is just going to be these 2 quarterbacks not making mistakes. These 2 guys aren't going to be asked to drop back 35, 40 times a game and rip the ball down the field. They're just going to be asked to run the offense, run RPOs, get rid of the ball quickly, don't take sacks. Just keep your guys in favorable scenarios to convert 3rd and short, 3rd and medium. And that's what Marcus Freeman's telling his guys. That's what Mario Cristobal's telling his guys. Also, Marcus Freeman, bit of a coming out party last year. I'd say he's one of the best coaches in college football. And he's one of the reasons I'm going to be taking Notre Dame in this game. Coming off their national title game appearance, obviously had to replace their quarterback, but even last year it showed like they don't need the quarterback to run this offense the way they want to. I think they're going to get their tight ends involved and they're going to get their receivers involved a little more than they did in that national title game, obviously. And I think Jeremiah Love is going to be he's going to be the story of this game this afternoon. He's going to run the ball on these guys. He's going to come out 100-yard performance. I think he's going to dominate this game. He's going to assert his dominance in this game, and he's going to lead Notre Dame to victory on the road. Carson Beck starts his Miami career off with a loss. All right, we're gonna go a little more rapid fire now. I'm just gonna go through the slate, talk about some games I'm definitely gonna have on the TV, some things I'm gonna be looking for. Because again, there is a lot of interesting games. I mean, just starting off Saturday morning, along with that Ohio State game, I'm gonna watch Syracuse, Tennessee. Tennessee's a 13.5 point favorite at home. Obviously, big switch around in Tennessee this offseason with Nico going to UCLA and Joey Aguilar coming over from UCLA. All of a sudden, he goes from compete for a job at UCLA from App State. This guy's the starting quarterback in the SEC at Tennessee. So how can he run the Heupel offense? Because obviously, I mean, that's not what he's planning on doing. He was at Appalachian State. He went to UCLA. It's not like he was ready to be in a spread offense, dropping back this many times a game, throwing the ball. How can he execute? They did not have a better option as a backup. They're forced to pivot to this guy. How can he execute the offense? And 13.5 point favorites, that's interesting to me because, Syracuse and Fran Brown, he's going to give them a tough game. Obviously, he beat Miami last year. I think that's going to be a good game to watch. Another game at 12:30, Alabama going to Florida State. Two new quarterbacks again. A lot of fresh quarterbacks in new places this year. Ty Simpson wins the job over Keelan Russell and UW transfer Austin Mack. I think Coach Grubb and Coach DeBoer went with him. They wanted the guy who was going to do the right thing every time. Might not be the most talented in the group. I was personally vying for Austin Mack to get the job. I'm not sure how it looked down there. He's a 6'5" gunslinger, came over from UW, but they know Ty Simpson's going to do the right thing. He knows what he's doing. He's going to get his guys the ball. Obviously not the athlete that they had with Milroe last year or not the athlete that Russell is. But Grubb said himself in a press conference, he said, this offense requires a pass-first guy over a run-first guy, which is definitely true, the DeBoer offense. And also, Florida State, this is a good spot for them, I think. They're going in heavy underdogs at home. It's weird to say they got nothing to lose from this game in week one, but they were one of the most disappointing teams in college football last year. And they got Thomas Castellanos coming over from Boston College. He's been running his mouth. He had the quote that he's dreamed of playing against Alabama. They don't have Nick Saban to save them. He just doesn't see them stopping him. And this is the guy who got benched at Boston College last year, but I like it. He's one of those guys. He definitely has the tools. All the talent's there. Can he get it done? I don't know, but I like the spot for Florida State, honestly. I don't really think they're going to win, but I think they can get Bama in some trouble there and definitely make it interesting for DeBoer and Ty Simpson in the opener. Another game we got at 1 p.m., definitely a bit of a lesser game. I don't know how many people are going to be watching this besides fans of these respective teams, but you got Oregon versus Montana State. Oregon, I'm not sure if they have actually announced the starting quarterback. Last I saw was that Dante Moore and Novostad were battling for the job. I saw Novostad saying he seemed like he seemed pretty confident about himself, but I'm not sure they've announced one. You'd have to think it's going to be Dante Moore. For all the hype, all the talk's been around him in the offseason, but you never know. A little weird that they wouldn't announce the starter of a guy that some people have as a Heisman dark horse. A lot of people like nationally. You'd think that you'd announce him as a starter. And I mean, Montana State's no slouch. Like FCS, when it comes to FCS games, this is I feel like the last FCS game you want to play. In the national championship last year in the FCS, one of the best FCS programs year in, year out. And they're just going to be a team they're going to be scrappy. I mean, last year, if you go back to week one, Oregon got shocked a little bit in that almost the first three quarters of that game against Idaho. They only ended up winning by a score, maybe two at the end of it, but Idaho was going back and forth with them. And they have a very similar test this year with probably a better team. But I do think Oregon will win. I think that is just one to watch a little bit. A few more interesting games I really like. I'm really looking forward to Georgia Tech versus Colorado. Georgia Tech 4.5 point favorites. Deion's first college game without Shador. Caden Salter announced the starter over Juju Lewis. I think definitely the right call. Salter's good, came from Liberty. But how does this look? How does Deion look on the sideline without his son? What are the announcers going to be talking about? And Georgia Tech, it's a good team, but it's a dangerous spot for them because a lot of people don't think Colorado are going to be very good, honestly. And if Deion can go out there and win this game, this is a really good look for him. Obviously, he caught a lot of heat in the offseason. People thought he was going to retire. People thought he was going to leave the team. Ended up, he had cancer. He made the recovery. Great for him. But I think Deion's in this position to shock the world. And I think he's definitely, these last few years, his teams start hot. That can definitely be said. They obviously had that TCU game in his first year at Colorado with Shedeur. Big underdogs there, ended up winning. Obviously, last year they beat North Dakota State, but the hype was all there. I think this is a win big spot for Deion. I like Colorado to win that game. Another game relating, Nico, we got Utah at UCLA at the Rose Bowl. Utah 5.5-point favorites. This is a good game for quarterbacks. This is an 8 p.m. game, night slate, Pac-12 after dark in honor. Devin Dampier comes over from New Mexico. This guy's a stud. I watched him when they played SDSU last year. Complete athlete. He might run all over them. And then you obviously got Nico. How is Nico going to look at UCLA? Heard he's had a good camp. UCLA is another team that's being very underrated. I think I don't know if they're going to be a team that wins 7-8 games. I really don't think they are, but I think they're going to be a team it's going to be a hard game for these good teams in the Big Ten, and they're going to shock some guys. So Utah being a 5.5-point favorite there, that's a dangerous spot. So it's a tough road opener, especially. Not going to be the biggest atmosphere at the Rose Bowl, unfortunately, but that's no slouch of a game to start the season. Monday, very much looking forward to North Carolina versus TCU. It's finally here. I feel like the national talk has definitely slowed down when it comes to Bill Belichick's debut at UNC. Obviously, we've had all the talk with his girlfriend over the whole offseason. A lot of people didn't think he was going to coach, the weird buyout clause in his contract. But, I mean, we've made it. Monday Night Football, TCU, 3.5-point favorites versus North Carolina. North Carolina just announced that South Alabama transfer to be their starting quarterback for this game. But how does Belichick's team look? You'd think they should have a good defense. I don't know how their offense is gonna. It's gonna be really, really interesting. Like I feel like no one can really know what to expect going into this game. That's a good TCU team. Josh Hoover, quarterback, dark horse, Heisman potentially. TCU's a good team, but it's a weird spot. They almost don't know what to expect. Belichick hasn't coached in a few years, and he comes back to coach North Carolina. How has he changed this program from a not very good team these last few years? So that will be definitely on everyone's TV on Monday night. Last two games, I just think I'm going to be interested to watch. Sunday, we got Virginia Tech, South Carolina. I love Lenora Sellers. I think he's definitely a Heisman dark horse. I think South Carolina is being a little underrated. I know they're in the SEC, but these guys are dangerous. If they get hot, last year they almost beat Alabama. They played people tough last year. And Lenoris is back. I think he is going to be on my top 3 Heisman watch list. Virginia Tech's scrappy, but that's going to be a fun game to watch. And then you got Auburn versus Baylor in Baylor. Baylor's 2.5-point favorites at home. How's Jackson Arnold going to look? Obviously benched at Oklahoma, pushed out. He was supposed to be the future there. And, it really just didn't work out. Now he's in Auburn SEC. How's he going to look? It's another tough game versus Baylor. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting things to watch, a lot of things to toss in your YouTube TV quad box there. A lot of good storylines, lots of fun quarterbacks to watch. So it should be a fun weekend around college football. All right, I'm excited for this. Going to talk a little Huskies. Going to give my preview for the season. Some things I'm excited for. Some things we're going to be watching for. Really excited going into this Husky season. Very excited. Last year, I mean, you're always excited going into the new college football season, but obviously last year, I think everyone was a little down for the whole fiasco in the offseason. Obviously, DeBoer leaves after the Natty. Half the roster leaves. Fish comes in, has to rebuild. The offensive line can't even practice in the spring. They come in, Will Rogers at quarterback. Cool. First year in the Big Ten, tough schedule. It was fun at times, but there was definitely some ugly times where it was it's not very pretty. And there was some things that in love from Fish, but I think Jed Fish is the right guy for the program. And I think this year would be a good test to see, he was working with a lot of limitations last year. So I'm expecting a lot of things to change this year. Obviously, you got Damon Williams, the quarterback. I think he's a Heisman dark horse. I don't think he's going to win the Heisman because I don't know if we're going to win enough games. And obviously, if Penix doesn't win the Heisman when you go 12-0, it's going to be hard for a guy out of Washington to win the Heisman Trophy. But I think he's definitely going to get on that radar. He's going to become appointment television. Once we get to those later Big Ten games that are more in the national spot, like the national media is going to know this guy's name. I'm already seeing a lot of stuff recently. People are starting to wake up to Washington a little bit. People are starting to predict him to be in that 9 through 12 range to make the playoffs. So a lot of people are starting to see, I think, what people in Washington are seeing, that this team it has some serious potential. It definitely has some serious potential. So, number one, obviously, we touched on the quarterback. We'll talk about Jonah Coleman. Jonah Coleman's one of the best returning running backs in the entire country. I think he's still a little slept on, too. Obviously, he was at Arizona, and then he came to UW and played on the average UW team last year, so he didn't get the attention he deserved. But again, he, like Demond, people are going to start to wake up to him. Also, Denzel Boston, one of the best receivers in the Big Ten, returning potential first rounder this upcoming year out of Emerald Ridge High School. Again, same thing. This whole Husky team, people are going to start to wake up around the country and know the names of these guys, that not just these high college football reporters who do this for a living. People are going to know who Denzel Boston is. People are going to know who Jonah Coleman is. People are going to know who Demond Williams is. So this offense should be firepower. It should be. These guys should score a lot of points. Demond is fast, all right? And if they can keep him on his feet, that is the main thing. This offensive line needs to keep him on his feet. Those 2 games he started at the end of last year, he got sacked a lot. And that he's a smaller guy too, listed at 5'11", 190, added a lot of muscle weight in the offseason he was talking about, but you have to keep him healthy. If he isn't healthy, the season goes down the drain. But definitely some potential. Both Hatchet Bros at center and right guard. Drew has a party right tackle. Well, competition at left guard's interesting. Paki Finau is a guy coming out last year as a freshman who high recruit. And then we got this guy, John Mills, coming in out of San Francisco, California. Fish that they're both going to play on Saturday, which when we talk about for a second, Saturday, 8 p.m. start for a Colorado State game. Come on. You got to wait all day for that. That's annoying, but still, we'll be up watching. Carver Willis starting at left tackle. From Kansas State, I believe. It should come down to them. If this offensive line can be serviceable, I think the Huskies have a serious chance to make the playoff. But it's going to come down to them. The skill guys are there. All the potential is there. Decker DeGraff, great first year at tight end last year. Quentin Moore, been on the team for a few years, just now getting healthy. I guess had some stuff nagging with him over camp. Also, you got Amari Evans. Denzel needed another guy across from him. They got Amari Evans transferred from Penn State. He's fast. That should be another guy to stretch the defense. And freshman Raiden Vines-Bright has came out of nowhere, and he's going to play. He's a starter listed. It's Amari Evans or Raiden Vines-Bright on the depth chart. That is, if they can have a freshman stud receiver, that is a huge difference maker, because receiver depth behind Denzel last year was not great. So the offense has the weapons. It's going to come down to the O-line, but there's some serious potential in that Huskies offense. When you get to the defense, this D-line is really good. If Zach Durfee's healthy, he should be a 10-sack guy. Isaiah Ward, very good off the edge, number 91. Jacob Lane, number 48, starting at edge out of Emerald Ridge High School. This Husky D-line is starting to catch. I've been seeing a few tweets. People think this Husky D-line is going to be very good. The linebackers, Buda Al-Ukta transferring over from Washington State. Devin Bryant, linebacker. That's good. Replacing Carson Bruner last year. That was a big hole to fill, and I think the Huskies did a good job of it in the portal. Also, X Alexander back up there, good depth. That linebacking core is good. In the secondary, this secondary, I mean, it's hard to say what the strength of the team is with those skill guys, but when you have Ephesians Prysock and Tacario Davis as your 2 opposite corners on each side, there's not a lot of receivers that can beat those guys. There's not a lot of pure cornerback matchups that rival those guys. In all honesty, obviously both of them came from Arizona, and Davis came over last year. He's on a lot of preseason watch lists as a DB. And man, these guys at safety, you got Mikel Steen. He's been on the team for a while. He should be the leader of this defense. He's a 5th or 6th year, I believe, but hard hitting. Alex McLaughlin, safety number 12, the transfer from Northern Arizona, I believe, kind of came out of nowhere to start at that other safety spot. But overall, yeah, this secondary and this D line should really lead this Husky secondary, this Husky defense. And defense coordinator Ryan Walters last year, obviously Steve Belichick, defensive coordinator. I think I and a lot of Husky fans were underwhelmed with him. It didn't feel like his defense had a lot of bite. There wasn't a lot of. I don't think there's anything special about the Steve Belichick defense that is going over to UNC now. But Ryan Walters, not a great head coach, a very good defensive coordinator. With Illinois, he's one of the best defensive coordinators in the nation. He's talking about how he is a much better defensive coordinator now than he was then. So this defense is going to be scary. And again, going back to that offensive line, I think this defense is going to be great. That offense has the skill position guys. The offensive line can be solid. This team can make some serious national noise. So let's go through the schedule a little bit. Obviously, you open up Colorado State. I think that's a win. UC Davis at home. That's a win. And you go to Poland for Washington State. The Huskies should be a much better team than Washington State last year. Obviously, they put together the roster at the last moment. Weird neutral game in Lumen Field. I was there. It was ugly. We'll not talk about the play on 4th and goal, but I think you should beat the Cougars. I think your roster is much better. It doesn't really matter that it's in Pullman. You should beat the Cougars. You come to Ohio State at home. Julian Sands' first road game as an Ohio State starting quarterback, if he is still starting for this game, that's definitely something to note going into one of the toughest environments in the country. So, I mean, it's Ohio State. I'm not going to be biased and pick them to win every game. So we'll say they lose that game. I think going to Maryland, now we get to these road games. Besides Wazoo, obviously, a big, just bad area of last season's Husky team was their inability to win away from Husky Stadium. Obviously, they're still holding on to one of the tied for the longest, I think, home winning streak. Them and Georgia are tied for the longest, and they couldn't win in a road game last year. Obviously, they weren't easy games, but that's not a good sign. So, Maryland, I think you're a better team than Maryland, but you need to go in and prove yourself to win these games on the road in the Big Ten, flying across the country. I still remember that Rutgers game last year. Just so hard to watch. You get in the red zone, you outgain them by so many yards, and you can't score, and you lose that game to Rutgers you shouldn't have lost. I think you beat Maryland. I think you beat Rutgers at home. At Michigan, this is a game that heavily depends on Bryce Underwood and who he is as a quarterback. That's a real tough game though, in the Big House. So I mean, I'm going to be objective. I think that game's a real toss-up. We'll give that game to Michigan, so that puts us at 5-2 after the Michigan game. I think at home you're really hard to beat, and I think you beat Illinois at home. I don't know if Illinois is going to be as good as a lot of the media is saying they are going to be. You beat Illinois at home at 6-2. I think you beat Wisconsin on the road 7-2. You can beat Purdue and UCLA. UCLA is going to be interesting at the Rose Bowl. Just depends on how Nico is. But I think you beat both those teams, and you could beat Oregon at home. I'm not going to say they're going to lose to Oregon because I hate Oregon, but this team is. I think if they win 8 games, it'll be like, okay, that was a good season. But they definitely have the potential to win 10 games and make the playoff. And 10 games definitely gets you into the playoff. Their two hardest opponents are on the road are at home in Oregon and Ohio State, and the toughest place to play in the country. And then you have Michigan on the road, which is a tough game. But I mean, the schedule puts them in. The opportunity's there. The opportunity's there for the Huskies. And I just want to touch on Jed Fish for a little bit. Just a few things that I just want to see be better. In one, I talked about for a little bit, that red zone play calling last year was just brutal. I mean, I know it's definitely having Demond is a huge difference maker because you have the factor of his legs. You can run an option. You can probably run a speed option, and it will work more effectively than it did with Will Rogers on like the 3-yard line into the boundary. But having that's a big difference maker, but you have to be able to make stuff happen. Like, it doesn't matter. They obviously, I like his play calls in open field. I like his play calls most of his drive, but when it gets down to the fourth and short, third and short, on the goal line, in the red zone, he's leaving a lot to be desired, and I think he knows that. Obviously, he does know that. And I think he's going to be better. But you have Denzel, you have Omari Evans, you have Decker DeGraff. It's a great tight end. Like, you can use all these guys. It doesn't have to be one dimensional in the red. You can use Mon's leg. Obviously, you have Jonah Coleman, he should be one of the best short down backs in the country. But again, it comes down to the offensive line. They just need to be serviceable. Another thing, like, I don't really know how much of this is on Jed, but he just got to have his team ready. Those games on the road just didn't seem like the team was ready to go on the road and win a Big Ten football game. So, I mean, these are things I feel like we'll be able to know shortly after the season starts. I think we're all a little antsy, but I'm excited. I'm excited for the Huskies, and I think this could be a really, really fun year for them. All right, to finish the show, just going to give some little rapid fire national championship pick and Heisman Trophy pick. I'm going to go Heisman first. There's a lot of guys. I just have the odds pulled up. There's a lot of guys that I think really catch my eye. I think it's going to be a fun race. I don't know why Carson Beck has like the tied for the fifth best odds. I think Lenoris is interesting. I think John Mateer is interesting. I think both those guys are going to have the stats, and their offense is going to be good enough for them like to win it. I think Jeremiah Love at plus 3,000 is really interesting. I think that offense, I mean, it sits on his back. Obviously, it's a running back, so it's hard. We saw with Genty, and that's obviously in the Mountain West. It's hard to do it the whole year. It's a battle of attrition being a running back. I think if he stays healthy the whole year and Notre Dame goes to the playoff, I think Jeremiah Love has a serious talk to win the Heisman Trophy. But I'm going to go with, I think Cade Klubnik's going to win the Heisman Trophy. I think Clemson's going to be undefeated. And that goes into my national championship pick. I think Clemson's going to win the national championship. I think Dabo is back. He had his little rough stretch with the transfer portal adjusting, but I think he's back, and I think this is Dabo Swinney's I'm not leaving tour. I think this is his year. And yeah, I think Clemson's my pick to win the national championship. And Cade Klubnik is my pick to win the Heisman with a dark horse Jeremiah Love pick. And that's what we're going to go with. And that's where we're going to wrap up today's episode. It's the only episode this week. And next week, we'll have 2 shows coming at you. I'm really excited for next week's shows. We'll have one on Monday talking about the weekend in college football, talking about some NFL week 1, and then should have one Thursday, whole NFL preview. We're going to talk about each division a little bit, going to have a big Seahawks preview. Really excited for that one. So this was episode 1 of the Diego Colley Football Show. Thank you for listening. If you made it this far, download the show, share it with your friends, please. I'm trying to grow this thing as we go. So I really appreciate you for listening. If you're still here, thank you so much, and enjoy the weekend of football.